They say he could stop death, but not his own. Darth Plagueis was not born a monster. He was born curious. Too curious. An orphan from a cold, calculating world who asked the one question the Jedi feared most. Why must we die? While others chased glory with sabers drawn, Plagueis vanished into laboratories, vaults, and ancient tombs, searching not for power, but permanence. He unlocked secrets that could twist the Force, manipulate life, and birth empires in silence. And yet, for all his brilliance, he forgot one simple rule. Never train someone smarter than you. This is no bedtime story. It's the slow, surgical unraveling of a mind that tried to master death and ended up teaching the galaxy how to destroy itself. From the shadows of Muunilinst to the rise of Sidious. This is the life story of Darth Plagueis. Under the pale skies of Muunilinst, where towering spires pierced the clouds and commerce dictated the rhythm of life, a child named Hago Damask wandered the labyrinthine alleys of the capital. Born into the prestigious Damask family, his lineage promised affluence and influence. Yet amidst the opulence, young Hago felt an insatiable hunger, not for wealth, but for understanding the unseen forces that whispered at the edges of his consciousness. From an early age, Hago exhibited an uncanny sensitivity to the Force. His mother, recognizing this rare gift, nurtured his abilities in secret, guiding him through rudimentary exercises to hone his perception. She instilled in him the importance of discretion, warning that the galaxy was not kind to those who wielded such power without restraint. In the grand halls of the Damask estate, Hago spent hours poring over ancient texts and holocrons, seeking knowledge beyond the conventional teachings of the moon. He became particularly fascinated with the concept of midichlorians, the microscopic entities that connected all living things to the Force. The idea that life itself could be influenced, even manipulated, ignited a spark within him. As he matured, Hago's abilities grew stronger, but so did his ambition. He began to question the limitations imposed by traditional Force philosophies. Why accept death as an inevitability? Why not challenge the natural order? These musings set him on a path that diverged sharply from the teachings of the Jedi and the expectations of his family. It was during a clandestine visit to the archives of Muunilinst that Hago encountered a fragment of a Sith holocron. The artifact pulsed with dark energy, its contents revealing forbidden knowledge about the manipulation of life and death. The Sith philosophy resonated with Hago's own beliefs, offering a framework to achieve the control he so deeply desired. Driven by this newfound purpose, Hago sought out further Sith teachings, delving into the shadows to uncover secrets long buried. His quest led him to the attention of Darth Tenebrous, a Bith Sith Lord who recognized the young moon's potential. Under Tenebrous's tutelage, Hago adopted the Sith mantle, taking the name Darth Plagueis. Together, they embarked on a journey to unlock the deepest mysteries of the Force, with Plagueis's obsession with immortality guiding their dark endeavors. Thus began the transformation of Hago Damask, from a curious child of Muunilinst to Darth Plagueis, the Sith Lord who would come to master the art of manipulating life itself. The skyline of Coruscant never slept. Its towers pierced the stratosphere, lit by the endless glow of traffic lanes and administrative spires, all anchored by the jewel at its heart, the Jedi Temple. It was here, far from the cold corridors of Muunilinst, that young Hago Damask first stepped into a sanctuary of light. His robes were new then, the fabric still stiff, the threads not yet worn by failure. He arrived not as a wide-eyed orphan, but as a calculated prodigy, a child whose Force sensitivity had stirred enough curiosity among Jedi watchmen to merit a trial period as an initiate. For a time, the Order wondered. Could this quiet moon child be shaped into a Jedi? In the dormitories, Hago rarely spoke. He listened, always, to instructors, to whispers through the temple stones, to the silences between words. He bested others in meditation chambers, grasped galactic history with an uncanny recall, and moved through Form 1 lightsaber drills like someone tracing mathematics through movement. But something about his performance unsettled the masters. It wasn't lack of effort. It was the presence of something else. Something watching from behind his eyes. They called him gifted, but not attuned. Hago, for his part, never sought the camaraderie of his fellow younglings. While they formed bonds through training and shared failures, he retreated into the library, walking alone among holocrons and illuminated manuscripts. There he would sit for hours beneath the golden glow of ancient texts, tracing philosophical treatises on the living force and its connection to biological life. What intrigued him was not serenity or balance, but causality. If life and death were part of the same current, could the current be reversed? During one trial, when asked to lift a boulder through pure force manipulation, he succeeded with precision. But when a Padawan nearby faltered and a pillar collapsed toward them both, Hago caught the stone, then let it fall. Not because he wished the other harm, but because he needed to understand what would happen next. Would the Force intervene? Would the Jedi react? The injured Padawan recovered. The Masters took note. One called it detachment, another an error in judgment, but Hago called it data. The sparring halls were where he faltered most. His movements were fluid but lacked conviction. When one instructor challenged him directly, "What is your purpose here, Initiate Damask?" he did not answer. How could he? To speak the truth would be to admit he had no desire for the Jedi's form of peace. He wanted control, insight. He wanted to wield the Force like a scalpel, not a prayer. By the time of his initiate trials, the Council had seen enough. His Force abilities were undeniable, but his philosophy, his lack of compassion, his intellectual coldness set him apart. When the verdict came, it was delivered without judgment. Hago Damask will not be selected for Padawan apprenticeship. They expected grief. He offered a shallow bow, lips sealed. In his quarters that night, he sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes fixed on the training saber they would soon reclaim. As dawn crept through the transparisteel window, he took it apart, delicately with precision, until only fragments remained. He kept the hilt's crystal core, already dull from disuse, and marked its casing with a single scratch, one line for the wound he would not forget. The next morning, he was gone. The Order did not pursue him. Another failed initiate. Another lost child of the Force. But in the underlevels of Coruscant, far below the temple's ivory spires, Hago found his calling. In the ruins of a derelict data vault, he uncovered shattered records from the Jedi Civil War, mentions of exiled masters, of broken codes, of holocrons lost to time. There were whispers of Force users who walked neither path of Jedi nor Sith, and others who did. Among them, a name surfaced again and again in the wreckage. Bane, the rule of two. The idea that only through singular focus could the Sith achieve true mastery, that the dark side, when wielded with intent, could reshape the galaxy. For Hago Damask, it was not corruption. It was clarity. From the glow of temple archives to the shadows of forbidden texts, the Force had not abandoned him. It had merely changed its voice. He would no longer kneel at the altar of self-denial. He would seek the deeper frequencies, the places the Jedi dared not touch. The cracked saber hilt he once disassembled now lay buried beneath the streets of Coruscant, forgotten by the Order, but remembered by its owner. And as he followed the whispers further into the dark, they led him to a name, spoken not in reverence, but in recognition. A Sith Lord, a Bith, a master of alchemy and manipulation, one who had seen him coming, Darth Tenebrous. The shadow extended its hand, and Hego, without hesitation, reached back. He emerges as Darth Plagueis, master of life and death. A chill wind carried the scent of ozone and brine as Hego Damask crossed the threshold into Drummond Cass's hidden laboratory. Beneath sulphur-stained skies, sulphurous clouds swirled, casting blood-red light through cracked domes. The air thrummed with ancient sorcery. Each footstep on metal grating echoed like a heartbeat in the hollow cavern. In that cavern, lit only by phosphorus essence glowing in suspended vials, the young power seeker would begin a metamorphosis darker than any he had known. His master waited behind a curtain of shadow. Darth Tenebrous was a figure of whispered legend, gaunt, his face veiled by ridge-like scars, eyes luminous with cold calculation. At Tenebrous's call, Hego knelt before a low dais, where a single vial pulsed with sickly green fire. The phosphorus essence inside flickered, mimicking his own unsettled pulse. "Life and death are threads of the same tapestry," Tenebrous intoned, voice reverberating against the lab's metal walls. "But only a Sith may weave them into a masterpiece. Are you prepared to learn the art of unmaking?" Hego's reply was a whisper, but carried an iron resolve. "I am." Thus began the rule of two, master and apprentice, bound by hunger and ambition. In the nights that followed, Hego's world narrowed to two obsessions: the shimmering vial and the secrets it embodied. Tenebrous led him through corridors lined with vats of living tissue, suspended like grotesque constellations in amber fluid. There, they studied life at its most malleable: the twist of midichlorians under sonic pulses, the reshaping of blood through synthetic catalysts, the promise of extending life beyond natural decay. In one sanctuary, the master demonstrated the ritual of essence. Tenebrous uncorked a vial of phosphorus serum, and with a slash of his crimson blade, drew a thin line across his palm. The serum seeped into the cut, dissolving flesh in soft luminescence. Hego watched, stomach twisting, as the wound knit itself whole within seconds, the scar vanishing as though never there. This was no trick of the mind. It was alchemy. "Pain is a tool," Tenebrous observed. "It refines the spirit. But life is the rarest prize. To command mortality, one must first know fragility." Hego experimented on clones, no more than lab-stitched husks, infusing them with the serum to challenge their cellular decay. Some lived, others convulsed, their bodies warping into nightmarish parodies of vitality. Each failure was a lesson, each success a step closer to the mastery he craved. Beyond alchemy, Tenebrous drilled into the tenets of the rule of two, doctrine cloaked in betrayal. One to embody power, the other to crave it, he whispered during long hours before a flickering holocron. Only in competition can the strong be revealed. Only in secrecy can the Sith endure. Hego learned that trust was ephemeral, that instruction concealed hidden tests, and that failure was met not with mercy, but with erasure. Yet beneath Tenebrous' teachings lay an undercurrent of caution. The Master never shared the final truths. A locked vault at the heart of the lab remained sealed, its key rumored to lie within a holocron shard that itself broke and reformed depending on the moon's alignment. Hago sensed its pull, a promise of the greatest knowledge. But he knew, as all Sith did, that such power carried a price. At the lab's center stood a pool of dark-tinted water, still mirror black and unnaturally cold. Tenebrous gestured toward it in a silent command. Hago peered into its depths and thought he saw his own reflection, twisted, scarred, yet regal. The water hissed as if breathing. The Master explained that this was the mirror of malice, an artifact that revealed an individual's true potential through their darkest fears. To gaze into it was to confront oneself in totality, a perilous rite, reserved for those who had endured every other trial. Hago took a steadying breath and knelt. As his gaze met the mirror's surface, visions surged. The orphanage tunnels he once haunted, now aflame with screams. The Jedi Temple's archivists, their faces contorted in shock as he tore pages from sacred tomes. A child's hand clutching the cracked Muunilinst amulet, echoing through the black water as a mournful echo. And then, a figure, masked in red and black, draped in Sith regalia. An avatar of power unbound, standing atop the galaxy's burning capitals. When he withdrew, Hago's eyes glowed with newfound hunger. Tenebrous nodded, as though he had expected nothing less. "Rise, Apprentice," the Master murmured. "You have seen yourself as you truly are, and as you must become." In that moment, Hago Damask shed his orphan's skin. No longer merely a scholar of forbidden texts, he embraced the shadow itself. The broken lightsaber fragment in his pocket felt insignificant against his surging ambition. Tenebrous offered him a title, Darth Plagueis, a name forged in sorrow and promise, combining the sorrow of mortality with the plague of unending life. With it, Hago pledged himself not merely to study death, but to perfect it, to bind life and unlife in an eternal dance. As the volcanic winds howled outside, the Apprentice, now Darth Plagueis, distilled the phosphorus essence's final whispers. In the gloom of the Sith laboratory, amid the chorus of dripping fluids and distant rumbles, he tasted the first draft of mastery. And with that mastery came a certainty. The galaxy would tremble beneath the weight of his ambition. He emerges as Darth Plagueis, master of life and death. A gilded hollow coin glinted beneath Coruscant's neon haze, spinning atop a polished obsidian desk deep within the Senate banking district. Its surface danced with shifting symbols, credits, bonds, ledgers of untold wealth. In that mirrored glow sat Hago Damask, now Darth Plagueis, no longer an orphan or an alchemist's apprentice, but a silent architect, weaving fate's invisible strings. The corridor outside thrummed with bureaucratic urgency, droids gliding between vault-like doors, aides clutching data sticks, senators draped in robes dyed with power's promise. In the Republic's heart, money was might, and Plagueis wielded it as deftly as any lightsaber. He had arrived on Muunilinst with nothing but an orphan's cunning. Now he commanded its greatest bank, a web of financial influence spanning star systems. Plagueis gestured, and the holocoin stilled. A tapped command projected a three-dimensional stock ticker in mid-air. Trade verges on Nevia rose, surpluses streaming from distant agrarian worlds. But his gaze lingered elsewhere. A destabilized planet teetering on civil war, its government ripe for investment or exploitation. Behind him, a pair of Senate security droids exchanged data. They knew of Plagueis's dual roles, as banker and as something darker. His wealth was fueled not merely by interest, but by carefully sown discord. Small subsidies withdrawn. Inflation sparked in key sectors, then reversed with perfect timing. Each ripple of panic swelled markets he controlled, and his coffers grew. The Republic's bureaucracy became his instrument, its debts his conduit. He pressed a fingertip to the hollow ticker. "Redirect 25,000 units toward Quat shipyards," he murmured. "Increase their armament contracts by 20%. The droids complied. Minutes later, a fresh data stream confirmed the shift. Military spending soared, announced as a necessary precaution. Plagueis allowed himself a smile. Fear, like money, was a currency. Yet his true masterpiece unfolded in Coruscant's back halls, shadow corridors unshown on official maps, where senators traded secrets as easily as credits. Plagueis met with key figures: a Corellian trade lord anxious about piracy, a Mon Calamari governor pledging support for naval expansion, a Twi'lek senator entangled in irrigation scandals, each left indebted to the Moon banker who offered discreet loans, favorable terms, and a listening ear. His name was still Hago Damask to them, the genial financier from Muunilinst. His Sith identity remained buried beneath layers of illusion. In the vaulted lounge of Vault 9, he shared brandy with Dorian Sevquar, the Republic's chief financial overseer. Sevquar, a portly human in austere robes, drained his glass with a sigh. "We're close to default," he lamented. "The Outer Rim worlds won't cover their levies. We'll need another bailout." Plagueis offered a serene shrug. "Debt is a teacher. Offer terms they cannot refuse. Adjust interest to incentivize compliance. Remind them that without our credit, their economies collapse." Sevquar blinked. You think like a strategist." Plagueis tilted his head, amber eyes reflecting the amber liquor. "Strategy and finance are but two faces of power, my friend." Outside, the city pulsed. Towering spires, suspended skyways, and hollow ads touting galactic unity, even as Plagueis's machinations loosened its foundations. He held immense sway, yet maintained plausible deniability. His influence was a broad shadow, felt but seldom traced to its source. Word spread of a new, charismatic senator emerging from Naboo, Sheev Palpatine. Smooth-voiced and poised, he spoke of unity, of healing the Republic's fractures. Plagueis observed him via encrypted feed, artful orator with entrancing cadence. His speeches rallied coalition support. His campaigns drew donations from wealthy backers. Plagueis saw in Palpatine a kindred strategist, someone who understood that words like credits could tip the scales. Yet the Apprentice master dance required subtlety. Plagueis dispatched an aide bearing a single hollow coin engraved with Muunilinst's crest. It arrived in Palpatine's private chambers, accompanied by a message: "We share common interests." Intrigued, Palpatine summoned the banker to a discreet meeting in Coruscant's Opera House catacombs, an abandoned suite once used for secret rendezvous. There, among echoing marble and spectral surveillance feeds, the two met. Palpatine, draped in senator's finery, extended a slender hand. "Master Damask," he greeted, "I have heard of your remarkable successes." Plagueis inclined his head. "Senator Palpatine, your reputation precedes you. Your proposals in the Senate have been illuminating." Palpatine's lips curved. "I seek alliances with visionaries, those who can shape the Republic's destiny beyond mere legislation." They dined on spiced noodles and vintages from Naboo vineyards. Palpatine spoke of reconstruction after conflict, of guiding the Republic into a golden age. Plagueis spoke of the subtle arts of influence, sowing discord only to reap unity, offering hope tinged with fear. By the evening's end, Palpatine pledged support for Plagueis's banking reforms. Plagueis, impressed by Palpatine's cunning, agreed to finance covert operations to secure the senator's more ambitious bills. A partnership was forged not in lightsaber duels, but in whispered commitments over aged wine. As Plagueis departed the catacombs, guard droids unaware of the pact just made, he saw in Palpatine a spark of the mastery he had taught himself, a mirror reflecting his own ambition. Behind them lay the Senate's glittering facade. Ahead loomed Palpatine's ascent, a testament to Plagueis's manipulation. And as the banker vanished into Coruscant's neon night, he pondered the next move. How best to guide this promising pawn toward the final checkmate? His apprentice appears, a senator named Palpatine. Moonless skies lay heavy over Naboo as Darth Plagueis led Sheev Palpatine into the hidden war room carved beneath swaying reeds and placid waters. A single shaft of starlight pierced the ceiling's latticed vents, illuminating a black and red ceremonial robe draped on a statue of ancient Sith lineage. Tonight, the apprentice would don that robe, not as a mask, but as a mantle of power. The chamber's walls were etched with swirling glyphs of the rule of two: master and apprentice, predator and prey, keeper and heir. Plagueis moved among crimson-hued kyber conduits that pulsed with latent dark energy. The hum, a steady heartbeat beneath, whispered instruction. "Remember," he intoned, voice low and measured. "We are the shadows at the edge of the galaxy. Our strength lies not only in power, but in subtlety." Palpatine knelt before the robe. His fingers traced its blood-red hem, Sith tradition and destiny woven into every stitch. Plagueis placed a guiding hand on his shoulder. "You carry the future of the Sith," he murmured. "Wear this with purpose." As Palpatine rose, transformed, Plagueis led him through the chamber's lessons. First, the art of patience. Knives gleamed in shadowed alcoves, holocrons of ancient knowledge, and the two practiced silent rituals of concentration, drawing on the ambient force to cloak their presence. Palpatine learned to seep into minds like poison, to whisper doubt beneath the veneer of civility. Next came subversion of will. Plagueis demonstrated subtle duels of the mind. His apprentice faced illusions of fear and desire, each broken only by disciplined will. When Palpatine hesitated, visions of his ambitions flickered. Chancellor on the zenith, galaxies under his governance. Plagueis urged him closer. "Crush doubt," he commanded. "The galaxy bends only to those who claim its end as their own." At the heart of the war room stood the Chamber of Echoes, a domed niche lined with Sith alchemical apparatus. Bioless fluids shimmered in phials, each a test of life and death. Here, Plagueis unveiled his greatest experiments, serums woven from midi-chlorian strains that could extend lifespan or sever the bond between spirit and flesh. Palpatine inhaled the vapors of a phosphorus essence, eyes narrowing as memory and mortality tangled in his mind. Plagueis watched, noting the apprentice's resolve. "You will master death," he whispered, "and in that dominion, you will surpass even me." Palpatine's lips curved. "Together, Master." Their nights blended into one another. Missions cloaked in political intrigue, duels cloaked in illusion, negotiations cloaked in honeyed promises. Under Plagueis's tutelage, Palpatine learned to navigate Senate corridors as deftly as starship captains maneuver through asteroid fields. He discovered that fear was as combustible as any blaster bolt. A well-placed threat could topple alliances without a single shot fired. In the quiet hours before dawn, the two stood at the chamber's threshold, overlooking Naboo's mirrored lakes. The ceremonial robe had adorned Palpatine for weeks now, its crimson glow a silent banner beneath the stars. Plagueis's gaze drifted to the horizon. "Soon," he said, "the galaxy will bend to our design." Palpatine's hand brushed the robe's folds. "And when that day comes," Plagueis turned, amber eyes reflecting starlight, "you will stand alone." Beneath the rule of two, Master's power wanes as Apprentice's ascends. Plagueis sensed the shift, an undercurrent of ambition stirring in Palpatine's soul, like a predator smelling blood. And yet, he did not tremble. Betrayal was part of the design. He had sculpted an apprentice capable of seizing the throne of the Sith. In the final lesson, Plagueis taught the calculus of betrayal. They reenacted a duel in darkness, sabers igniting only in flash and echo. Palpatine struck with lethal precision. Plagueis yielded with actor's grace, collapsing without invoking the Force. As Palpatine's blade hovered above his throat, Plagueis smiled. "Remember this moment," he rasped. "The student becomes the master when the teacher grants him the blade." The echo of that test lingered long after Palpatine fled the war room, heart pounding with triumph and shock. Plagueis watched him depart into Naboo's silent night, knowing the balance had shifted. The apprentice's resolve had solidified into something darker than any alchemical draft. In the war room's cool shadows, Plagueis gathered the ceremonial robe. He folded it carefully, its red threads now tinged with prophecy and betrayal. His own lessons were complete. The next chapter would unfold by Palpatine's will, not his. The Master rose, stepping into corridors lit by twin moons' pale glow. The galaxy's fate, once poised upon many hands, now balanced on one. And as he walked away, the whispered promise of immortality echoed through the chamber's glyphs. Their bond deepens even as ambition claws at its edges. The biolabs on Muunilinst lay buried beneath layers of polished marble and clandestine vaults, their entrances guarded by neural locks keyed to a single signature: Darth Plagueis's will. Within those sanctums, the air thrummed with muted pulses as rows of stasis tanks glowed in soft, eerie hues. At their center, a colossal kyber crystal hovered in containment, a living heart of crimson light beating to an unseen rhythm. Here, Sith alchemy was not myth, but methodical science writ in blood and ambition. Darth Plagueis moved through the labyrinth of glass cylinders and brass conduits with calm purpose, his cloak's hem whispering against the gleaming floor. His apprentice, Palpatine, followed close, eyes wide as he beheld specimens of life coaxed into existence. Thousands of bioengineered creatures, half-formed shapes born of darkly woven midi-chlorian strands. Each bore the promise of mastery over death's final boundary. "Observe," Plagueis commanded, voice low as the hum of machinery. "Hear Life and death are threads we can reweave. Their first trial involved the trial of extension. Subjects long past their natural span, sustained in stasis vats by alchemical serums. An octogenarian Muunian statesman sat suspended in fluid, his heart still beating though his body should have crumbled to dust. Plagueis tapped a control panel. The serum flow adjusted, and the man's pallor shifted from ashen to flushed. "Eternal youth," Palpatine breathed, scarcely audible. "Or eternal cage," Plagueis corrected, studying the masterful blend of chemistry and force technique. Nearby, a row of husks, once slaves condemned to die, quivered as life seeped back into their limbs. The philosopher-turned-sorcerer had distilled the secrets of rebirth from forbidden holocrons, marrying them to Muunilinst's renowned banking algorithms. Every molecule of the potion was tracked, measured, and patented, ensuring that only the chosen could access its power. "Immortality is currency," Plagueis mused, "and I hold the central bank." But the darkest marvel lay concealed behind reinforced doors, the project of true creation. In a soundproof vault, an embryo constructed entirely in vitro stirred beneath a pulsating kyber crystal. Plagueis himself had spliced force-infused cells with engineered templates, birthing a new life unanchored to parentage or natural law. Its features were blank, its potential infinite. Plagueis placed a gloved hand on the crystal's containment field. "Here, we birth destiny," he whispered. Palpatine's visage gleamed in the crystal's light. "Master, will this work? Could we truly conquer death?" Plagueis turned, eyes gleaming. "Not merely conquer. To command life's spark, to mold it as clay. This is the apex of power. A Sith need fear no theft of legacy, no betrayal of flesh." The apprentice swallowed, ambition aflame. "Then we are gods." Their experiments extended long into Muunilinst's nights, blending arcane rites with precise formulae. Hydroponic vats housed force-sensitive flora, petals shimmering with latent energy. When Plagueis harvested their essence, it distilled into potions that heightened midi-chlorian affinity. Palpatine drank his first taste beneath a blood-red moon, exulting as power coursed through him. "I feel the Force everywhere," he gasped, touch electrified. Yet not all trials succeeded. One vat erupted in corrosive fire when balance slipped, melting conduits and singeing Plagueis's hands. Another specimen, cloned tissue grafted with Sith sorcery, turned on its keepers, lashings of dark energy erupting in a storm of pain. Twice, their sanctum nearly fell, but each failure taught more than triumph. Plagueis catalogued every flaw, every heartbreak, in a ledger of shadows. As dawn approached, the master and apprentice stood before the central kyber crystal. Plagueis, orchestrator of life and death, raised his voice in a silent invocation, weaving the alchemical formulas into a final crescendo. The crystal's pulse stuttered, then steadied, as if acknowledging its master's will. In that moment, mortality itself seemed to pause. Palpatine bowed his head. "I stand on the threshold of eternity." Plagueis placed the ceremonial vial of perfected elixir into his hand. "Drink, and your legacy begins, not as an apprentice, but as immortal." Palpatine raised the vial. For an instant, the galaxy's fate balanced on his choice. Would he seize the elixir, or would he let ambition ferment into betrayal? As he paused, Plagueis saw it. The apprentice's impatience, a silent hunger, sharper than any blade. The lab's hum deepened, the kyber crystal thrumming its staccato beat. Outside, Muunilinst's twin suns peeked over the horizon, heralding a new day. But within these walls, night reigned, a darkness not of absence, but of warped creation. Palpatine uncorked the vial. The elixir glistened like liquid starlight. He lifted it to his lips. Plagueis watched, triumphant yet wary. The culmination of centuries of study, the secret of life's perpetuity, now passed into Palpatine's hands. And with that transfer, the balance subtly shifted. As Palpatine drank, Plagueis felt a tremor, less a tremor of power gained than of power slipping away. He whispered almost to himself, "Success." And yet, the seed of impatience grows. The apprentice's eyes flashed with newfound vitality. He gripped Plagueis's arm. "Master, with this gift, we will reshape the galaxy." Plagueis nodded, cloaking his apprehension beneath a calm smile. "Yes, together. But remember, eternity belongs only to those who survive betrayal." In the biolab's flickering lights, Master and Apprentice stood at the pinnacle of Sith artifice. Their experiments had conquered death's edge, yet the greatest test still lay ahead, one of trust, of timing, and of darkness's hunger for dominion. Success teases them and stokes Palpatine's impatience. The marble halls of the Galactic Senate shimmered under Coruscant's midday suns. But beneath that polished facade, a darker current wound its way through every chamber. And Darth Plagueis held the reins. He sat behind layers of protocol, cloaked in the guise of a discreet financier. Yet every vote, every debate, bore his subtle watermark. A flick of his wrist could redirect credits toward warships or welfare, sow discord or broker peace, all from the comfort of hidden comrades humming beneath plebeian streets. Late one evening, Plagueis slipped into a private gallery overlooking the Senate floor. He tapped a holopad and a three-dimensional agenda projected into the air, a mosaic of shifting resolutions, defense bills, trade sanctions, planetary subsidies. Each motion carried the seeds of discord he had planted. A controversial trade tariff here, a nebulous security threat there. As legislators squabbled over policy, he watched through encrypted feeds, gauging which senators would bend and which would break. "Balance is power," he murmured. "And power is influence." Several levels below, in the bowels of Coruscant's undercity, his communication arrays roared to life. Hushed voices transmitted orders to mysterious intermediaries across the galaxy. Ambassadors on Chandrila, banking magnates on Pantora, even dissident senators on Corellia, all unwittingly advancing Plagueis's grand design. He exploited every fissure, funding a pro-war consortium on one world, while channeling subsidies to isolationists on another. The Republic's unity frayed like ancient rope. On Coruscant, whispers of ghost voting began. Hushed rumors spoke of votes counted twice or erased, ghosts slipping motions through committees unseen. Plagueis orchestrated these shadows, ensuring Palpatine's legislation, however contentious, sailed through. A defense appropriation for the Royal Naboo security forces, cleared. A resolution bemoaning separatist agitation on Ryloth, passed. Each success bred dependence. The Senate relied on Plagueis's insight to navigate crises he covertly authored. Among his greatest triumphs was the subtle manipulation of key trade disputes. He fed false intelligence to Corellian corvettes about Neimoidian blockades, provoking skirmishes that rocked the mid-rim. Outcry reached the Senate, and Palpatine, ever the statesman, called for unity, his soothing cadence hailed as wisdom. Yet every word echoed Plagueis's underlying orchestration. In a private alcove within the Senate's spires, Plagueis convened with a select circle of confidants, bankers, lobbyists, a handful of senators hollowed by debt. They gathered around a flickering strategic map, each world marked with projected outcomes of Plagueis's interventions. "Observe," he said, sweeping his hand over the hologram. "Here, our allies grow stronger. Here, our adversaries weaken." Their nods affirmed his meticulous design, unaware that their loyalty was bought with promises of influence he would later retract. But the true masterstroke lay in engineering crisis within crisis. When tensions flared between Rishi and Ord Mantell, Plagueis sowed evidence of illicit dealings, triggering a blockade that threatened vital hyperlanes. As galaxies watched in alarm, Palpatine convened peace talks, positioning himself as the Republic's savior. Each rescue owed its success to the very chaos Plagueis had unleashed. Throughout, Plagueis remained unseen. He studied Palpatine's ascent from the shadows, proud of the apprentice who navigated every trap he'd laid. Yet, in the quiet moments, when hollows went dark and the Senate's din faded, Plagueis sensed a shift. Palpatine no longer sought counsel. He began to circumvent the Master's directives, drafting secret measures in locked chambers. The Apprentice's rebellion was subtle, an innocuous amendment here, a personal envoy there, tiny cracks in their covenant of darkness. One evening, as Plagueis calibrated a delicate vote on medical aid for Corellia, he realized the Senate's reliance on his influence had birthed a new dependency, on Palpatine's charisma. The Chancellor's ratings soared, his public image immaculate, and yet every triumph still bore the Master's signature, unseen by all but the ghosts in the archives. Plagueis weighed the irony. He had engineered the Republic's decline, shaping the Empire's rise, only to watch his apprentice reap the public's adoration. In that moment, he understood the peril of absolute influence. Power, wielded from behind the scenes, could sculpt destinies, but it could also slip through one's fingers when the apprentice learned to manipulate the same strings. The comrays fell silent as Coruscant's lights dimmed for night, leaving the Senate's golden halls empty. Plagueis lingered, fingertips brushing the holographic map. The galaxy stretched before him, fragile, malleable, ripe for the taking. Yet somewhere in the data streams, a faint glitch hinted at Palpatine's growing independence. He allowed himself a thin smile. Influence was a double-edged saber, and soon he would test whose hand was steadier. Palpatine begins his own schemes in secret, beneath Coruscant's gilded streets, in the catacombs carved from ancient bedrock. Darth Plagueis moved with silent purpose. The air was thick with the scent of damp stone and the distant hum of life above. Flickering red tracers in the dim tunnels cast dancing shadows on the walls, where murals of long-forgotten Sith mourned the passage of empires. Plagueis's ebony cloak swept the floor, but its clasp, a once impervious alloy now cracked and weathered, grated softly against the dusted stones. That fractured clasp was his first warning. The bond between master and apprentice, too, could crack under pressure. He paused at a fork in the passage, consulting a hololocator concealed in the seam of his robe. Its glow reflected in his narrowed eyes. One path led to the Senate vaults, the other to the Opera House's subterranean vaults, where Palpatine had arranged a private performance for an exclusive circle of confidants. Plagueis chose the latter. He sensed currents in the Force, ambition rising like a tide. As he ascended hidden service stairs behind the Theed Opera House, he smoothed his robes and secured the fractured clasp. The tiny split in the metal caught the pale glow of the corridor's lights. Once flawless, it now trembled like a warning of fragility. He touched it lightly, closing the gap with a practiced hand, though he knew it would not hold forever. Inside the grand auditorium, the air was rich with perfumed fans and hushed whispers. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto plush red seats as a quartet tuned instruments before the soon-to-begin matinee. Senators and corporate magnates gathered in boxes above, their laughter tinkling like glass. Plagueis settled into a private box, his silhouette framed against the stage's pale curtain. Moments later, his apprentice appeared in the final box across the hall. Palpatine wore a tailored suit of midnight blue, crowned by a subtle black and red cloak clasped at one shoulder. Their eyes met briefly, master and pupil. Then Palpatine inclined his head, lips curved with deliberate warmth. Yet in Palpatine's gaze, Plagueis detected a flicker of impatience, a hunger for the spotlight rather than the shadows. The performance began, a haunting aria of longing that rose into the vaulted space. Plagueis closed his eyes, letting the music wash over him, seeking balance in the melody. But his mind drifted back to the tavern beneath the opera house, where Palpatine had quietly met with dissident senators, promising financial favors if they backed his new security bill. Plagueis's fingers brushed the fractured clasp again, as he recalled the transmitted holofeed showing Palpatine's hand guiding each vote. After the final note faded, Plagueis descended into the catacombs once more, following a secondary tunnel that led to the palace's undercroft. There, Palpatine awaited him amidst a circle of candlelight and stolen holocrons. Plagueis studied the scene. The senator's ceremonial cloak draped across a stone altar, its clasp shining whole and new, a stark contrast to Plagueis's own broken one. "You honor me," Plagueis said, voice calm. "I see you have procured new adornments." He gestured to the pristine clasp. Palpatine smiled, eyes reflecting candle flames. "Master, I keep my tools well polished. We cannot betray presentation." He paused, stepping closer. "But there are concerns about your methods." Plagueis's brow rose. "Concerns?" He stepped forward, the cracked clasp whispering over stone. "Explain." Palpatine moved with measured grace. "Your influence in the Senate is unmatched, yet your patience risks our timing. The Chancellor's approval rating dips. Unrest stirs in the Outer Rim. If we do not act swiftly, the Senate may seize emergency powers beyond recall." He uncapped a vial of phosphorus essence, letting its scent drift between them. "We can spare no more time for subtlety." Plagueis watched his apprentice's face in the flickering light. "Subtlety," he repeated. "You forget the lessons of the rule of two. Patience ensures permanence." He reached to adjust his own clasp, rejoining its fractured halves. "Impermanence comes to those who leap before the hourglass judges them." Palpatine's eyes glowed. "Or we fail, Master." He traced a finger along the new clasp on his own robe. "I will not fail." He turned away, gesturing to the holocrons at his feet, blueprints for Sith ascension buried in forbidden lore. "The galaxy trembles. I can feel its fear. Let me seize the mantle." Plagueis heard the apprentice's ambition surge in the Force. He sensed the widening gulf between loyalty and betrayal. Yet he smiled, for this was the crucible in which Sith masters forged their successors. "Very well," he said softly. "Proceed." but remember who taught you the art of patience. The Undercroft's torches guttered in the draught as Palpatine bowed and departed, each step echoing down the corridor. Plagueis touched the fractured clasp on his own cloak once more, sealing its fragile seam. He listened to the final click of Palpatine's retreating boots, then gathered the holocrons into his robes. Alone, he bowed before a silent chamber shrine, its idol carved centuries before in black granite. He laid his hand on its cool surface, eyes closed. "Master," he whispered into the emptiness. The apprentice grows restless. His fingers brushed the cracked clasp again, heart heavy. Yet our designs demand caution. Outside, the city's hum rose through grates in the stone. In Palpatine's ambition, he felt the stirring of darkness given shape, a darkness that would one day coalesce and claim even his own life. He exhaled through cracks of regret and anticipation. Plagueis sensed the darkness coalescing in his pupil. Under the vaulted ceilings of the Tantive IV's grand gala hall, the Republic's finest assembled in silk and chiffon, their laughter glinting like starlight against polished durasteel. Crystal lanterns drifted overhead, suspended from gravity lines, casting warm pools of light on banquet tables laden with delicacies from across the galaxy. Senators milled amid dignitaries and military brass, toasting newfound peace as trumpets heralded the arrival of Chancellor Palpatine. At the heart of the gala stepped forth the newly elected Supreme Leader, Darth Sidious, cloaked in political triumph, his features concealed by genuine warmth. Obi-Wan Kenobi, no, Darth Plagueis himself, watched from a discreet balcony alcove, the ornate Chancellor's medallion gleaming at Palpatine's throat. It was crafted of Reventlin and Beskar, its circular face embossed with the Republic's crest entwined with twin serpents, one green, one red. Tonight, that medallion symbolized ultimate victory, the culmination of countless adjustments to ledgers and votes, the final installment in a debt owed to the Sith. Plagueis lifted a crystal flute of Naboo's finest champagne, its bubbles glinting silver, and toasted the empty air. "To power and the price it commands," he murmured. Below, Palpatine's speech began. He extolled unity amid diversity, spoke of economic reforms to stabilize the Outer Rim, and pledged new programs to rebuild war-torn worlds. Each promise was loaded with subtext. Credits rerouted to Muunilinst's consortium, secret clauses favoring Sith-aligned sectors, assurances to clandestine military councils. The audience, unaware of the hidden amendments, broke into applause, spilling over into cheers that echoed in the hall's majestic curves. As senators rose to toast him in chorus, Plagueis allowed himself a rare, cold smile. He replayed each carefully orchestrated moment, the leaked memos that discredited Palpatine's rivals, the timed market crashes that vaulted Palpatine's campaign funds, the covert broadcasts that painted the senator as the Republic's only hope. Each thread had led inexorably to this night. And now the puppet strode center stage, his strings pulled by a master who remained in the shadows. A hush fell when Plagueis's holocom flickered. He stepped back into a hidden antechamber, eyes narrowing as encrypted messages streamed across his private console. Reports arrived of separatist remnants quashed, of military tribunals quietly disbanded, of citizen watch squads being armed on Coruscant's lower levels. The pattern was unmistakable. Palpatine was moving to consolidate power. Each small, public-spirited decree masked a tightening grip on the Republic's heart, exactly as Plagueis had designed, although perhaps faster than Plagueis himself had intended. He recalled their final alchemical experiment, when life had flickered back in the vats and Palpatine's eyes had burned with unquenchable hunger. The apprentice had tasted godhood and found the flavor addictive. Power had become Palpatine's sustenance, and no master's caution could temper his appetite. Plagueis pressed a fingertip to the fractured clasp of his own cloak, a subtle reminder that bonds could fracture. Returning to the balcony, Plagueis watched Palpatine accept congratulations. Senators vied to place medals on the Chancellor's robes. Each medal represented a promise kept or bought, a faction's loyalty purchased. Palpatine smiled graciously, slipping each medal's ribbon over his shoulders, and upon finishing, he reached up and ran a careful finger along his chain of office, adjusting the ornate medallion so it sat perfectly center. The jeweled serpents in the design seemed to flick their jeweled eyes at Plagueis as if to whisper, "This is but the beginning." Below, a singer's lament drifted through the hall, a haunting melody of hope entwined with sorrow. Plagueis closed his eyes, letting the music stir the force around him. The galaxy had welcomed its savior. And yet, in that serene chorus lay the thin dissonance of impending betrayal. He opened his eyes to see Palpatine's profile lined against the crowd, face luminous with victory and shadows deeper than night. Tonight, the Republic celebrated its triumph. Tomorrow, Palpatine would claim absolute authority under the guise of protection. And on that dawn, Plagueis realized with chilling clarity that the final page of their pact had been written in his own blood. For the Sith to reign, the Master must fall. As Palpatine raised his glass in a final salute, Plagueis lifted his own, one silent toast to the Apprentice's ascendance, one whispered farewell to the bond that had drawn them together. The gilded medallion at Palpatine's throat caught the lantern light, its serpents intertwined in eternal hunger. Plagueis watched until the last note of the singer's lament faded, then turned away into the shadows he alone commanded. The galaxy would not know his hand had guided their fate, but he would feel the sting of betrayal before dawn. As Plagueis celebrates, the final betrayal brews. Lightning rattled the hidden chambers deep beneath Naboo's palace, each crack of thunder echoing through the vaulted corridors like the drumbeat of fate. Darth Sidious stood before his master's private sanctum, robes swirling in the storm's draft. Inside lay the culmination of their shared ambition, rows of sealed life serum vials, each a testament to their alchemical triumphs. At the center, a single vial glowed with verdant promise, its crystalline barrier unbroken, its contents pulsing with stolen vitality. Plagueis had trusted that serum to extend his life beyond natural bounds. Now, its fate would be decided. Sidious slipped inside, footsteps silent on marble floors, marred by phosphorescent lichen. The chamber's low hum mingled with the storm's roar as he approached the central display. The life serum vial rested on a raised dais, illuminated by flickering torches. Sidious's gloved hand hovered over it, feeling its warmth. He remembered Plagueis's whispered teachings, how to harness midi-chlorian currents, how to bind essence of life to the living. He recalled nights spent refining that serum, watching test subjects awaken from biostasis with new strength. Power had always been their shared goal. Yet now power demanded sacrifice. A voice, whisper soft, yet laden with authority, drifted from the shadows. "My apprentice," Plagueis intoned, emerging from a hidden alcove, hood thrown back to reveal a face both aged and resolute. "You've learned well. But mastery, requires more than ambition. Sidious bowed, medallion gleaming. Master, I have surpassed your teaching. The Senate is mine. The Republic bends to our will. All that remains is a price, Plagueis finished. He stepped forward, eyes gleaming in the flickering light. A price you must pay if you wish to inherit what we built. Sidious's gaze flicked to the serum. You would test me? His voice was steel beneath silk. Plagueis smiled thinly. Tested already, my apprentice. Each lesson has been a step toward this moment. He raised a hand and released a small pulse of dark energy. Sidious flinched but steadied himself. Drink and behold immortality. Refuse, and the rule of two dies with me. Sidious stepped closer, eyes locked on the glowing vial. He could feel the serum's allure. Every fiber of his being demanded it. Yet as he reached out, his fingers brushed the fractured clasp at Plagueis's throat, and he sensed a deeper vulnerability beneath the master's calm facade. A plan crystallized, to take the serum for himself, yes, but first, to quell the one who might use it to betray him. Immortality is a fable, Sidious said quietly, hand hovering. You know that, Master. Plagueis's eyes narrowed, but he did not step back. All stories serve a lesson. He gestured to the vial. Learn it firsthand. At that moment, Sidious struck. A flick of his wrist, a hidden Shoto blade unsheathed in a flash of red. Plagueis's eyes widened as the blade sliced through the air toward the vial. With a roar, Sidious slammed the blade's pommel into the crystal barrier. The vial shattered, emerald liquid spraying like wounded life onto marble. The serum hissed and scalded, its promise evaporating in an instant of deadly betrayal. Plagueis stepped forward, shock and fury warring in his gaze. You fool, he cried, reaching for a backup vial. But Sidious was swift. Force lightning crackled from his fingertips, searing the alcove's walls and sending Plagueis stumbling backward. He clutched at the broken glass, each drop of serum burning his flesh, a bitter mockery of the power they had sought to wield. Sidious advanced, cloak billowing. No, he whispered, voice low with triumph. I am the master now. He pressed a gloved hand to Plagueis's chest, and the broken serum's fragments sizzled on contact. Plagueis gasped, eyes glazing as the lightning's heat assaulted his body. He sank to one knee, the shards of the vial glittering around him like fallen stars. With a final gasp, Plagueis lashed out with the force, sending Sidious crashing into the chamber's far wall. The lights flickered as alarms echoed from above, Plagueis's last safeguard. But Sidious rose, coughs racking his chest, eyes burning with irrevocable will. He retrieved his blade and approached the dying master. Plagueis reached up, fingers trembling over the fractured cloak clasp. Remember, the rule, he rasped. His voice faded into a whisper as Sidious's blade descended. Steel met robe, and Plagueis's final breath mingled with the storm's cry above. The serum's shattered fragments lay at his side, a testament to ambition's cost. Sidious sheathed the blade, stepping back as life's last ember in Plagueis's eyes flickered and died. The alarms ceased, the storm abated. Silence claimed the catacombs. Sidious removed the master's hood and cast it aside, cloak still clasped in place. He knelt, gathering the broken vial's shards into a coded lockbox. I learned the price, he murmured into the stillness, and now I will forge a new legacy. He stood, medallion gleaming in torchlight, and departed the chamber, leaving behind the master he had slain and the promise of Sith dominion reborn. A master fallen, yet his legacy endures in shadows. The twin sons of Korriban receded beyond jagged black spires, casting long shadows across the ancient Sith shrines that crowned the Valley of the Dark Lords. Dust lifted on the wind as a solitary figure approached the ossuary's entrance. A hooded seeker in crimson robes, each footstep stirring echoes of long-dead apprentices and masters alike. The seeker paused before the carved basalt doorway, fingers brushing over the worn relief of a serpent entwined with a crystal. Within that serpent's coil lay the promise of forbidden lore, the teachings of Darth Plagueis, preserved in holocrons, whispered only in darkness. Inside, the air thrummed with latent power. Holocrons hovered in glassed alcoves, their faceted surfaces dull with age, but alive to the Force's currents. The Seeker extended a gauntleted hand, and a whisper of Plagueis' voice flared to life. "Remember, disciple, knowledge endures beyond the flesh." The holocron spun in a silent dance, light gleaming off its inky facets. Through the Force, the teachings reached out. Secrets of mortality defied, methods to bend life's threads, philosophies of power unchained by ethics. The Seeker bowed, absorbing intents shaped long ago by a master now gone. Far below Korriban's tombed peaks, in the mist-shrouded ruins of Yavin IV, another echo stirred. Rebel archaeologists had uncovered a ruin beneath the great temple, thought destroyed by temple flames centuries past. There, in a hidden vault sealed by vines and carved runes, rested a second holocron, its casing cracked, yet its voice undimmed. A Force-sensitive explorer brushed dust from its surface, awakening Plagueis' spectral form. His image flickered, eyes cold and calculating. "Your Republic thrives on borrowed strength," the holocron intoned through the Force. "Harness the darkness and shape your fate." As the two Seekers, one on Korriban, one on Yavin, heard the same whisper, the Force trembled with resonance. Across the galaxy, fragments of Plagueis' alchemical experiments lay shrouded in holovaults and forgotten laboratories, waiting for new hands to claim them. In the Academy's hidden stacks, on Dromund Kaas, acolytes pieced together bioformulas that echoed the Master's serum. In distant cantinas on Nar Shaddaa, underworld brokers traded chipped kyber shards rumored to carry the imprint of Plagueis' last meditation. The teachings of the Master, thought extinguished with his final breath, had seeped into the shadows, like seeds scattered on barren soil, ready to sprout anew. But these echoes carried a warning. The knowledge of life's extension came tangled with threads of betrayal. Apprentices who sought Plagueis' wisdom often found themselves entangled in webs of deceit, each holocron's lesson a test of loyalty and ambition. Some fell into madness, consumed by visions of omnipotence. Others disappeared in secret catacombs, their fates sealed by ancient traps. Only those who walked the narrow path between power and purpose could hope to survive the legacy intact. On Coruscant, whispers of strange anomalies rippled through the Senate's back channels. Senators reported dreams of a winding labyrinth beneath the city, and subtle shifts in the Force felt like a phantom heartbeat. Jedi Masters convened in urgency, debating the nature of this disturbance. Master Yoda himself sensed a flicker of Plagueis' presence, an echo of his dark alchemy woven into the tapestry of the living Force. "Gone, the Master may be," Yoda murmured, "but echoes of his hunger in shadows remain." In the halls of the new Sith Academy, The Grand Inquisitor strode past ranks of pale-faced acolytes. Each student carried a flickering datapad mapping Plagueis' hidden archives. Coordinates of secret shrines, encoded instructions for creating life serums, and philosophical treatises on the nature of power. The Inquisitor paused before a mural depicting Darth Bane forging the Rule of Two, then traced a finger over an added glyph, Plagueis' own mark. "Learn, you will," he said softly, "but betray, we must." A hush fell as the acolytes bowed, their hearts stirred by ancient whispers echoing through the corridors. Back on Korriban's wind-swept plateau, the crimson-robed seeker closed the holocron and replaced it in its alcove. In the hall's far corner, hidden styluses recorded every spoken word into a secondary holocube, a shadow copy for yet another generation of seekers. The serpent carving's eyes glowed faintly as the chamber's crystal torches dimmed, as though acknowledging the cycle of master and apprentice beginning anew. Yet across the galaxy in Yavin's ancient vault, the explorer closed the cracked holocron with a final echo. Legacy in shadows, the master remains. He pocketed the cube, knowing that the Force would guide him to Plagueis' other secrets. Outside, the jungle's mist shifted, and somewhere deep within the ruins, temple guardians stirred, alerts in stone, proclaiming an ancient vigilance over forbidden Sith lore. So the echo persists, a whisper through hidden holocrons, a current in the dark side, calling to those who dare to listen. And as that whisper spreads, new shapes form in the threads of the Force, twisting shadows of ambition and power, awaiting apprentices bold enough to claim the Master's legacy. The Force stirs in a new generation of Sith. Corridors of the Death Star stretched like the arteries of a living beast, illuminated by harsh white light and pulsing with low mechanical hums. In these sterile passages, Darth Vader walked alone, his black armor gleaming beneath stamped Imperial insignia. Each footstep resonated like a verdict, and yet within this machine of conquest lay a hidden sanctuary, the meditation chamber carved deep within the station's core. Here, the past lingered in every shadow, and a single candle burned in the darkness, its flame a fragile echo of a master long dead. Vader entered the chamber, boots clicking on polished durasteel. He paused before the lone candle perched atop an obsidian pedestal, its flame dancing against high walls lined with Sith glyphs. The air was cool, red emergency lights dimming at his approach. He knelt, the hiss of his respirator soft in the silence, and watched the candle tremble. That flame was his silent tutor, a symbol of Plagueis' enduring influence. Though the Master's body lay entombed in Naboo's catacombs, his teachings burned on in the dark side, guiding the galaxy's new architects of power. Vader closed his eyes, reaching inward through the Force. Ghostly memories of his fallen mentor surfaced. Vaulted labs on Muunilinst, the hiss of phosphorus essence, the first crackle of Sith lightning under a moonless Naboo sky. He felt the pulse of Plagueis' ambition woven into his own bones. With every breath, he drew strength from that legacy, molding it into his own unyielding will. The candle's flame brightened in his mental gaze as he channeled the memory of alchemical triumphs, knowing that in its light lay both promise and peril. Beyond the meditation chamber, the Death Star's corridors thrummed with activity. Officers briefing stormtrooper battalions, technicians calibrating super laser arrays, pilots preparing TIE fighters for patrols. Yet none sensed the quiet inheritance Vader carried. Plagueis' economic machinations and alchemical secrets had already rippled through the Empire's core, hidden subsidies that kept star systems compliant, biological enhancements that made Sith acolytes more resilient, holocrons mapping the contours of force manipulation. Each innovation bore Plagueis' stamp, subtle, profound, unseen by those who lauded the Empire's might. Weeks later, on the world of Lothal, the Empire established a new training facility beneath volcanic ridges, a future Sith Academy designed to cultivate the dark side's next generation. Elite instructors drilled cadets in lightsaber forms, Sith alchemy, and strategic subterfuge. In the Academy's central temple hall, a single alcove was reserved for Plagueis' shattered holocron, its chipped crystal humming with residual energy. A whisper through its broken facets taught acolytes to respect the price of forbidden knowledge. Young Sith knelt before it, tongues tasting its teachings as they recited lessons in extending life, bending midichlorians and weaving political influence. Instructors wore ceremonial robes of black and red, their clasps identical to the ones Plagueis had once worn, save for one intentional crack in each, symbolizing the necessity of vigilance against betrayal. Each apprentice understood that to claim the master's mantle, they must embrace patience as well as power. Hierarchs addressed them with riddles from Plagueis' bones. To master life, one must first master the self, they intoned, voice echoing off stone pillars. The cracked holocron served as both beacon and warning, a legacy burned into memory and code, ensuring that only those who withstood temptation without losing themselves would survive. Back in the Empire's higher echelons, Vader convened a silent council of dark adepts aboard his flagship. He traced a gloved finger over tactics maps, each star system annotated with economic leverage points, first identified by Plagueis' financial network. He instructed his officers to enforce stability through credit manipulation and bioengineered loyalty, techniques conceived in shadow laboratories. His tone was crisp, implacable. "We extend the Master's vision," he said, "and we do so without mercy." Under Vader's command, the Empire's reach deepened. Moisture farmers on remote planets found themselves tied to Imperial supply contracts seeded by Muunilinst's banking consortium. Secret inoculations against disease, spliced with life serum derivatives, were distributed to ensure compliance. Stormtrooper legions received augmented enhancements drawn from Plagueis' alchemical formulae, giving them steadier aim and faster recovery. No rebellion could stand long against such omnipresent influence. Yet in the quiet of his meditation chamber, Vader felt the weight of that legacy. Plagueis' candle still flickered in the darkness, an anchor in the swirling currents of ambition and power. Each visit reminded Vader that mastery required sacrifice, and that betrayal lurked even within the crucible of the rule of two. The fractured clasp on his cloak echoed that truth. No bond held forever, not even those forged in Sith alchemy. Beyond the Academy's gates, rumors of the Master's return sprang from hidden cults and underground movements. A whisper through holocrons traveled faster than any warp jump. Darth Plagueis had passed into legend, but his will persisted in living flesh and machine alike. In silent coordinates of fringe worlds, Force-sensitive rebels and Imperial heretics both scoured ancient ruins for traces of his experiments, seeking power or salvation in equal measure. And so the Sith who endured watched over the galaxy from shadows both near and far. In Vader's meditation chamber, where a lone candle burned against the void. In the Empire's biolabs and political vaults, where Plagueis' designs continued to shape destinies. And in the hidden shrines and future academies, where new apprentices tasted the bittersweet legacy of eternal life. To remember Darth Plagueis is to grasp the price of seeking eternity.